I should have brought gloves. Check, check, check. Javier Campos, president of Heritage Vancouver Society. You know, the thing with industrial buildings, they're nondescript, right? I mean, they're basically, for the most part, built for people with a very, one thing in mind, efficiency and cost efficiency, and so they're very utilitarian buildings, right? So that's another thing that strikes against them in terms of being thought of as significant. Cities tend to develop along paths of least resistance, and so when you have neighborhoods and houses, they tend to generate a lot of controversy and take up a lot of airspace. There's a lot of owners, a lot of people who have that are invested in what's going on there. Where you have industrial buildings, usually one person owns the building, and often if they're in the realm of heritage, they're old and they may have their business may not be as relevant. We have some very significant buildings that have to do with, over here, with neon production from the 1920s, and clearly that business is no longer viable or even in the building. And so these people are much easier to come and be susceptible to developers, and it's much harder to convince people that they should be kept. You know, Vancouver is special in the sense that it created Granville Island, and so that was a massive infrastructure project, done through the 70s, that really brought this idea that we could repurpose these industrial buildings and keep this idea that the waterfront had a past that was rooted in industry. All of Falls Creek, all of Cole Harbour was industrial, and now you wouldn't know. If you go down there, you see parks and things, and all those buildings are gone. And so this kind of wholesale erasure of how our city was born. I think that success of Granville Island, it's debatable, but at the same time, it does preserve some of those buildings and some of that history. Fast forward to today, there's many other places that we have to think about, including here in the Flats, right, which is one of the largest industrial areas that we have left in the city. We also need to understand him in terms of the present, and that's, people don't usually think this about heritage, but it's very important in heritage, it's its current use of the building. If you look at it in terms of businesses, right, buildings like this that may not seem to have a lot of significance are quite important, because they're the ones that are building the industry. They're the ones that artists are in, like 1000 Parker. These are buildings that have housed a lot of the sort of creative class that may otherwise exit Vancouver. I think it's the same challenge everywhere. I think, they're not considered beautiful buildings, they're not considered to add much. They're also, the tenure makes it easy to develop those buildings. There's some person who's owned the building for 30 years and somebody offers them a big chunk of money. You can rezone it. It's part of that question, one has to ask oneself about how one wants to treat the past. Imagine your collection of things of your family, right? I mean, you don't need to carry all of your grandfather's possession, but you might want to have a picture of him, or a watch, or I don't know, something that might remind you, or might be something part of the family. And I think that that will help you understand where you came from, what is at stake, what people had, and I think it gives you a broader understanding. Industrial heritage is part of our history. It's part of why Vancouver is here. It's about how it developed. It's about how we became Vancouver, and so it's very important to preserve some of that and to help people, remember and understand where we came from. I mean, some people just want to create a brave new world of the future, and they don't need anything for the past, and they're fine with that. But if you have a feeling of that, then that you want to preserve things, and industrial heritage falls into that, and it needs to be recognized as well as everything else.